Welcome to the Meditation Conversation, the podcast to support your spiritual revolution. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin, and I'm excited that you're about to meet Ellen Hawkins. I've personally worked with Ellen and her husband, Paul, who are superb divine conduits who have a number of specialties. In this episode, Ellen shares incredible insights about her work in helping people with past lives and even going back to the womb to release traumas and behavioral patterns that are working against them. We also talk about another specialty of hers called Iridology, which is like palm reading, but using eyes instead of palms. And I know you're going to get so much out of this episode, not only the insights, but just being in Ellen's presence. She just radiates calmness and peace. So be sure you check out karagoodwin.com, where you can get a free 10-minute meditation. If you want support for your meditation practice, I have a 21-day online program to help you develop your own practice. There's also the Healing Hearth membership, where you can get live online assistance with your questions about meditation and life. And I have a recorded sacred geometry workshop series that's also available. All of that and much more on karagoodwin.com. And now enjoy this episode. Welcome, Ellen. I'm so excited. I've really been looking forward to this.
Well, I've been looking forward to it also. This is something that in my heart I want to share with everybody because it's a gift. And gifts, you're given to share. So this is good that you've given me an opportunity to reach out to some people through your podcast.
Yes, well, it's an honor for me. And, before we get too far into our talk today, I personally have experience with you. You're local to my area, and I've met you and your amazing husband, Paul. And you both have so many gifts. And I also have friends who have worked with you in different ways. We'll talk as we go through the interview today about the many ways that you work with people, but they're just having experiences that they're just raving about you and how much they love you. You and Paul. And so can we start by you talking about the unique way that you work with past lives?
Yes, I would love to share that. Used to, when we did the past lives, I would do what would be called, I guess, a cold reading. I would just let whatever comes to me and share it with a person at that time. Now I do what I coin a surrogate. I do a past life surrogate because I can go in for another person. And I do it prior to, actually having a session. And of all things, I do it in the bathtub because I think it's because I'm by myself. And also water is spirit. So by being in there and going into almost a hypnotic state, I would get deeply relaxed, I'm able to have that energy come through me. And I've been doing it for almost 40 years. So it seems like anything, the more you do it, the muscle becomes stronger, the ability to do it. Because, me going in for another person, I know the way there. I know the pathway. It's easy for me to go right there and get the past lives. Now, if another person, I'm doing it for them, or they are going in for their own past life, a lot of times what we're trying to find, if it's going to do a lot of good, is something heavy. So the person's going to have a lot of approach avoidance, and it's going to be very emotional for them. Or I can do it like turning a TV on and view it. Now, when I'm viewing it, I may feel some emotion, but it's not going to be jarring like it would for another person. And also gives me an opportunity to have them in one of the rooms that we work with and have them relaxed and in a very secure state before we start opening this up for them. And after we open this up for them, we do close into the energies that we have found. And again, I want to find something that's heavy. The things that I search for is something that we consider karmic in this lifetime. And if it's karmic, we want something that will be lifted off, they feel it. I don't want to lift off a little rock. I want to lift off a boulder. And 99.9% of the time when we get done with one, we ask them, how are you feeling? They say, oh, I feel so much lighter. Mm-hmm. And that's the word we're looking for. And we can tell sometimes even when we're doing releases, we can see them do and they're letting go. and it's going out of them. A lot of times the breath is a wonderful thing for meditation, or if you're going through anxiety, to follow the breath, it helps center us and it puts us into the now, this moment, because we don't want to be, thinking about the past or dwelling on the future. If we think too much in the past, it will cause us to have depression. If we're working too much into the future and looking there all the time, we will have anxiety. So when you're centered in the now, that's where, if you're going through something, you can ask yourself, am I okay at this moment? Am I all right? I'm whole, everything's okay. Now, there's times that it isn't, extreme times, but then you can also still take a look at it and say, I know through faith that before long things are going to be okay. You know that things will turn out, and you have acceptance for what is happening and that it's happening for a reason. And I think once we get into that, we start looking, if there's a door closed, we look for another door to open, because we, through experience and through faith, we know that that's the way the universe works.
So when you work as a surrogate, you mentioned that the lives come to you while you're in the bath. So, but then you also mentioned that you observe the way that the breath is working with the person. So how does your surrogacy and those kind of insights that you get on your own play into a live session with somebody?
Well, when I get done with the bath, I usually go and take a few notes and I put them down. And sometimes when I'm in the bath, I only maybe find one lifetime. So it's a process. Maybe in a couple of days or 3 days later, possibly I'll find another one. Again, I make a note and I try to get at least 3, sometimes 4 comes to me. And then I go in and I copy all this. I write it all out like a little, scenario. And it's usually, when I type it out, it's usually 3 or 4 pages for each one of them. And then when we're in there and we're doing a past life regression, I will read one and then I will stop and we will talk about this. I will say, an example, like I found you in China and you was working in a field with rice, and all of a sudden you've seen the explosion and you've seen people running and you was looking. Okay, I would ask them, have you ever had an experience where something exploded next to you, or how do you feel about China? And some people would say, oh, I always have a fear when I think about China. I've had that sort of thing. I really don't want to go there. There's other places around that area I want to go to, but that particular place, I really haven't, I don't want to do it. But you'll get some feedback, or they would say, yes, I had a father who was in a war and he was hurt, but there's going to be some type of connection. Or, my husband is Chinese. Who knows? But they'll start putting these things together and it starts making a pattern. And then I'll go to then Polka does the thing is shamanic, and he releases the energy of that and he transmutes it. We go to each person that's there, because the person that's getting the regression, they get a blessing. But anybody else that comes up in that particular one, they're going to get a blessing too, because they're getting things released. And another thing we find sometimes is that there is what we consider spirits around other people. These are not demonic. These are spirits. Sometimes if you're around a loved one when they pass and you had that strong feeling, I don't want them to go, we have to be careful, because especially if they're not wanting to leave you too, because when they start to leave, you pull them into you and they're not able to go on into the light. And so when you have an experience similar to what they had, it's like that takes over more, that energy does. An example of that is, remember Whitney Houston, when she died in the bathtub overdose? And then I think it was 2.5, 3 years later, Bobby Christine, they found her in a bathtub. and she OD'd, but she didn't die at that moment, but she died, I think, a few months later. But those patterns were so close together. Her mother was there. She longed for her mother to be there. And when she got into a depressed state, as I'm sure Whitney was, that she was able to take over. It's like it went here and it come together, and this changed. And here Whitney was here because the energy was so strong, because she is there.
Now, this is really wild. I really want to chime in here because before we started recording, because you and I are working on something within my life, in my personal life, and you were sharing the background of because you did your bathtub thing and it came in about a past life. And it was related to a slaughterhouse. And I told you, and I think I think we were having this experience very close together because you picked up on this about, I think you said 2 days ago. This was 2 evenings ago. I was driving and I was behind a tractor trailer that I know was for animals. There was not livestock in it, but I was sharing with you that I frequently pass pig trailers, and you know where they're going when that happens. And when I'm in that situation, I intentionally bless the pigs, bless the truck, I really feel like my energy and light is with them, just doing whatever it can do to soothe the situation. And this particular night, my thoughts, my imagination, let's say, were taken to a slaughterhouse. And I was imagining the slaughterhouse, and actually it was cattle, but the line of cattle as they were having their final moments, kind of lining up for their final moments, and the feelings, they know there is a lot of fear. People talk about the fear in those situations. So it was kind of like there was a part of me that was there blessing that, and and lots of different elements. You and I talked about this quite a while before we started recording. Well, the thing is that I didn't share with you is that when I was behind this tractor trailer 2 nights ago, I was on my way to an event with friends, and part of this event, we had to come up with names that were not our own. And my name was Whitney. I decided my own name, and the name that came to me was Whitney. So, which is not like I don't really have any, I loved Whitney Houston growing up, but I don't know where that name came from. But the fact that you're now bringing this up and it's related to the exact timing, I'm just like, there's so much going on. There's so much going on.
Yes, and you're very aware of it. When there's things that go on every single day, and a lot of times we miss it. We don't get the cues, just like if we're driving and we see a certain flower that catches our attention, and maybe then we'll go home and there's the same type of flower. And the next day, somebody brings us some flowers, the same kind. I'm at this speaking to us. And the way to get the message is to look that up. What does that mean? Well, what does it mean to us personally? Because it's speaking to us, it's telling us something, but we have to be aware of it. Just like when I'm doing the past lives, a lot of times I always see stuff, but sometimes I hear what's going on. Sometimes I even smell things. There's different senses that comes in, and sometimes you also feel like it touches a part of us. There's some kinesthetic, but all these different things. My most sensitive one is sight. But even when I'm doing a past life for somebody, I ask him, it's like, you go with me, because just like seeing an accident, I may see one view of it and you may see another. So if you see something else that we can add to this picture, this is good because we can expand it that way. But there's so many things that happen. I get so many confirmations. It's just amazing. I remember this one gentleman, this is when I did them cold, and it told me when I was working on it, it said his big left toe. And I was like, oh my gosh. I said, I'm going to look like an idiot if he was going, what? So I was like, are you sure? And it's like, Yep, he told me the same thing. So I just blurted it out. I said, one of the things that's going on with you is your big left toe. And he's like, oh my God. And I was like, what? He said, that toe has hurt me since I was born, a little child. He said, I've been having issues with my whole life. So, no, and again, that's that thing of trust, trusting what it is telling you. And I think I spoke to you before. I don't think I did this time yet doing the recording, but whatever it tells me, I trust by faith and also by experience that it's telling me what I need to give. And because if I didn't trust it and I didn't speak what it gave to me, why would it keep speaking to me? It would find somebody else that would honor what is given to me. And also, we was talking before about that person that I'm working with. When Paul releases whatever's going on with that person, anybody else that's in that lifetime, they also get a blessing. So it expands out. And if there's anything trapped, like we was talking about Whitney and Bobby Christine, we release that and we see them go on to the light, to the spirit. We see them going on and they're not earthbound anymore. They're not connected to you. And I think when we do that, in my opinion, when we do that, if somebody else is there with you, they are occupying a part of you. So all of you is not there. So there's something within yourself that could be strengthened by you being there instead of something else. It's almost like not really, but the example I can give, like a parasite. If something has parasites on it, it weakens the body. It's taking away the nourishment and using it someplace else. So when you release all that, the different things that are in your aura, it releases and all these little holes come together, and then you are you. You don't have these other things. Like sometimes you're like, I just don't feel like myself today. Well, guess what? You're not. We have to pay attention to the things even we speak. And what's going on. It's just a thing of being aware and catching these things.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. So why is accessing past lives and working with our past lives? Why is that important?
Because a lot of times people are stuck. I have people that come to me and it's like, a lot of times with family, there's a lot of issues with family. I think there's so much karma between us that draws us back together. And especially the mother and the father. I mean, we chose them to be our parents before we come in here, because the formula of accessing them and what we set up gives us opportunities to do what we have decided to do in this lifetime to help ourselves and also to help the world. But when we do that, there's karmas, and also there's what was it called? Well, I'll just go with karma. We can find that through numerology a lot of times. But those are things that we have chosen to work on. If we get a person that says, no matter what, my mom and me have never got along. I'll say something to her and I'll try and do something nice, and she'll turn it into a negative. And it doesn't make any sense. It's like, I went to psychologists. I went to therapy. I've done all these things to figure this out. But the issue is they're looking here. You got to go where it started. And that's where past lives come in. You go to where the beginning of it is. Just like if you got a headache, you take an aspirin. Well, that takes care of for the moment, but you need to go to the source. What is causing this? And we find a lot of times it's a past life. So we release that. We've even had one little boy that came to us. The person worked for us, and she had a baby, and he was gasping for breath from the moment he was born. So he was in the hospital. He had tubes in his nose, and he couldn't nurse. So one of the workers came to us finally, because he was in the hospital for a week or two, and said, can you do anything? Because they know what we do. So I went in and found the past life, and I seen in his past life, just before he died, he was running and running away from a situation, and he was shot. I think it was with an arrow between his shoulder blades in the back by his lungs, And the last thing he did was go, oh, like that. And that's how he passed. So he come in going, oh, again. So we had to release that. And then within a day or two, he was home. And last time I seen him, I think he was about 15 years old, and he's fine.
Wow.
So these things are very, very important. And we carry so much. If you just like had a child that comes in with something like that, or you may find that there could be group karmas also, where you'll see like a father has like prostate cancer. His father had prostate cancer, and then you're finding yourself with prostate cancer. That is a group karma. That is something that you have to go back again to the beginning to release all this, because something has happened. It could be, this sounds kind of outlandish, but there are curses that are flung. Even when somebody says GD to you, damn you, they are throwing a curse to you.
Mm.
You know, words are very powerful. You know, everything is first a thought, and then you always say in the Bible, I don't want to speak it into being. Words are very, very powerful. So we have to mind our words and be careful what we say.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but through clearing all that, people's lives change. Things that they couldn't get through and that had never changed, and it's been very frustrating. They change. One girl hadn't spoke to her biological fathers for about 7 or 8 years. We worked her, and then about a month later, Paul was talking to her on the phone. She said, hang on a minute, I got to answer the door. She said, oh, it's my dad. He brought me a lawnmower. She said, you mean your stepfather? She said, no, my dad. She said, he comes every week and takes me out to eat now. We're fine.
Wow.
So that energy, everything's energy.
Yeah.
You know, we look at, what is here, but if you look down into what everything is, it is just energy vibrating at different levels. That's what it is. Our perception is that we're solid, but we really aren't.
Right. Yeah.
So if we get the energy, just like you was talking about earlier, I was picking this up. Well, your energy was picking it up. Your spirit was picking it up. We were connecting on a different level.
Mm.
We're beyond speaking. We was connecting through our higher source. And, there's like a highway there that's always moving. And if you're connected to me and I'm connected to you and we're into a spiritual thing, it can come together and just expand.
Right. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Thank
What
you.
about rebirthing? Can you talk about rebirthing?
Yes, rebirthing again is something that can give people deep relief. When we are I believe before we are even born, I spoke of a little bit, that we choose our parents. This is my understanding. And we choose our parents. I think we choose where we're going to be born at, what location. I think we even choose what ethnic we're going to be. Are we going to be African? Are we going to be Asian? What we're going to be, because we set all this up prior, again, to give us opportunities. And what I'm talking about, opportunities, it's things that will build up enough that we will finally have enough pain that we'll look at it. And that's why, painful things are actually good things, because it gets our attention. Something happens and we get a little poke. Okay, then maybe a year later, something more happens. We get a harder poke. And then finally it gets so painful, it's like, I got to do something about this. And that's when things open up, and then when it clears out. But again, I would take the person into, after they figure out who the parents are, I take them into an area so they can figure that out and they can see it. And they actually see themselves, they can feel themselves going into the womb of their mother. And as soon as it does, I always feel like it's almost like a vacuum. I feel a little clump. It's all of a sudden they're not in spirit, they were pulled into here. And it's like a vacuum. They're inside the mother's womb. And then we go to everything that the mother feels. And sometimes the father too, if he's there, right there all the time, in the situation, the child feels. And they're finding out scientifically now that that is very, very true. The child can hear the music, they can hear what we say, what we eat, all these things. But one of the main things I look at is like, okay, what did your mother think when she found out that she was pregnant with you? And I take them to a state of mind where they're able to go back and feel these things. And it's like, okay, what did she feel? And it may be, well, she was nervous. Why was she nervous? Well, they weren't very well off financially. Okay, when your father found out that your mother was pregnant, what did he do? Oh, he was excited. He wanted a boy. See, there's two different kinds of emotions that go through there. Then we go through the whole 9 months of being carried, and we start going there, and as soon as we find a spot where that person, you feel like something big happened, we stop and we look at it. It's like, well, what's going on then? Well, her father just died. How did that make you feel? And so then I asked him, I said, do you ever have a fear of loss? Yes, I do. Well, do you realize that's your mother's, not yours? And then we can separate those two. I see that the mother and the child, like if you go to a grocery store and you pick up those bags for fruit and vegetables, and you got to go like this to separate it, it's very similar. You do not know it's your mother's because it's been with you your whole life. So we go through the whole thing, and usually we find several different things. It's like, well, when the mother, maybe she was sick of her stomach when she ate something, like beans, my God, I get sick of my stomach when I eat beans, those sort of things. And you can release that where it's not carried anymore. We have one girl in particular that her mother, when she was getting ready to give birth to her, they were in the service and the doctor was out on the golf course and she was going to labor a little early. And he was aggravated because he had to leave and come back and deliver the baby. And he kept telling her, push, push, hurry up, push, push. And he was kind of getting everybody in that whole hospital, the room there. They were also, hurry up, do this, rush, rush, rush. And the mother got to the point that she really, detested him because the way he acted. But the girl, once she was born, an older woman, we was doing a rebirthing for her. She could be going along doing just fine with people. And they said, come on, we got to hurry up and do this. And she gets so angry. She said, why do I get so angry? There's where it was.
Oh, interesting.
So it wasn't hers, it was her mother's. And then we go through at the end, like the birth of it, and the first thing you seen, and how did you feel? And then we go to when your mother's holding you. And the first time, this is always so emotional, the first time you look into your mother's face and your mother's looking down at you. What do you feel? What do you see in your mother's eyes? And then we did the same thing for the father. I had a set of twins that I worked 6 months apart, I think, something like that. And they always felt that their mother hated them. And when they was holding, mother was holding the baby and look at it, and I said, what was you feeling? My mother loved me. And we found out what it was that when the mother got pregnant, the father left. She hated the situation. The whole time she was pregnant, she was so upset and hating that, how am I going to raise these two children because they were twins? So at 60-some years old, they found out that their mother did not hate them. They was able to let that go. So It's a very powerful thing. But there's so many things that are revealed that we just don't realize.
It's fascinating that those things happen in utero and the moments right after birth, because we do have so much conditioning that we don't understand where it comes from. And that, I think, is just from growing up and picking up on cues. And we, like you're saying about, it's so deeply embedded, like it may be our mother's and it's not even ours, but we get that too, even just by walking through life, and especially those early years where we don't have, I like to use the analogy or the example of time. It's like we don't come into this life necessarily with opinions about time, but we learn that certain things are disrespectful if you're, depending on how our parents, the strength of their feelings, if you're late, you're disrespecting me, or you're being disrespected, or I can control people through time, and I can show that I mean more than other people by making them wait, or all these things. And they're completely subconscious, but we're more or less, theoretically neutral upon birth of like, well, time just is what it is. But it just, we have these things that we pick up that we just learn as we go because that's our environment. So it's really fascinating that you can go back to even like pre-memory. Like people might be able to, with the therapist, go through and be like, yeah, I remember my dad got mad at me because I was always late. And so I learned that I didn't want to make him mad, and what he interprets from that. And now I think that, there's something tied with respect with time, for instance, but to be able to go back and pick up on emotions and even like tastes and sensations while in utero is just fascinating.
It is. What I do is I put them through a deep relaxation, and there at the end, I have them go back to, I call it the wound of creation. I have them go clear back to that. And then when they're getting ready to choose, what I see is that they will work with the Lords of Karma. And you go and you have like a little conference and say, I've chosen this, this, and this to work on. And they look at it and say, yes, we agree. And then that is where you start watching your parents, and, they're getting ready to make love or whatever. And that's when you enter, but you're actually seeing your parents for the first time when you're in spirit. And we're watching this. And I also, through my understanding, is that this is something just recently that came to me. When we're in spirit, we don't judge. There's no judge, and I don't think there's as much emotion. Because through emotion we come judgment, because if we can feel something, we're judging it instead of letting it filter through and just viewing it and say, well, that's interesting, especially if it's a child or a parent or something, we get that feeling, and we have to watch that, because then we're on their train down the track, not ours, because we're hoping something will change and we want to take control of it. And we need to be very careful with that, because if we stop them, it may be something they chose in this lifetime. It may be their greatest moment. So you have to, it's better to allow, because if you don't allow it to happen, it'll build up again. And so like, if you keep saving them from something, it'll keep building up all the time, and you have to jump in again. And then it gets to the point that the spirit gets angry at you. They resent it, just leave me alone. I can do it myself. Or if you don't do what they want you to do for them, they get angry at you, because they've gotten so used to going to you to fix their problem, but it doesn't make them feel good about themselves.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we have emotions. I think we learn how to have emotions when we are inside the mother. She teaches us to have emotions again, because when you're pregnant, they say, oh, it's the most emotional time. Well, no wonder. We need to program all that into the child, all those different emotions.
Right. Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because I was just thinking about that today, and the whole design of the human experience and just how grand and diverse it is, because through these human vehicles, we're able to experience so many things: emotions, hunger, desire, forgetfulness, remembrance. And then, the physical sensations, sweating, being hot, being like freezing. And then the regular things that are more obvious, like our style or our preferences. We have all these senses. We can hear, we can see, we can taste, we feel, and then having the emotional element too. And it came to me also, like when you're in spirit, it's a a higher experience, you know so much more. You have a different, higher perspective that is filtered with this human experience because, I mean, in my mind, I kind of idealize the spiritual experience because you know so much more. So I feel like in a way, it's easier. And maybe that's just because I have a human experience. So I think something else is easier than being a human. I don't know that from this perspective. But it was this like understanding of the beauty and the opportunity that we have in being human that you don't have as a spirit, because as a spirit, as you're saying, you see everything neutrally. There's no emotion, but then you don't know what it's like to experience emotion. And in the human experience, we understand like, wow, anger feels so much different than joy. And they're completely different experiences. And we can have both in this one vehicle, and feeling like we've overeaten feels so different than when we're so hungry and we've missed a meal, and that plays on our emotions and our comfort level and our security and all of these. Like, it's so complex, but it's such a diverse range of opportunity of experience that we don't have as spirit,
Well, I think when we're a spirit, it's an evolution, and we kind of help, like you think of guardian angels, I always feel like my grandmother's around me, and I remember when I was a little girl, it's like I didn't want to do anything bad because I didn't want her to see it, but I always felt the presence. But I think that they're there to help in energy, in the spirit, by focusing on something that maybe will help. Just like right now, it seems like there's so many things that are going on that, the weather, and with, a lot of the other countries, it seems like there's so much, fighting and pain. But again, as I said, even with us, we have to go through so much pain to change. The earth has to go through so much. Our humanity has to go through so much to change. It has to come to a tipping point. And, in the Bible, it says, God sees 1,000 years like one day. We're like right here. We see this moment. We don't see that if this doesn't happen, things can't change. And we don't see 1,000 years from now where things will be better because of what happened now. We don't have that. That's where, faith and try to acceptance of what is.
Yeah.
But also, just like the angels, we can get together and pray and raise our energy up, because it helps raise the energy up there, and anybody else that's, in on the same channel, they can help lift up. And, we always hope that can change things also, to bring, because I think when we lift up and we connect with that, I think the energies in the heavens connect with us too, because, what is it? Ramita says, as above, so below, as below, so above. We are connected. It's one energy, just like even when we pray, our Father who art in heaven, holy be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So, there's this connection all the time. There's energy always flowing. But I do think the angels have, there's a timelessness there too. If you look at a plant, if you look at like a flower or something, or like a tree, they have been here so much longer than we have. They are evolved more than we have, in my mind. They don't judge. They just, they view. They don't have to even speak. They are telepathic. I mean, underneath the roots of the trees, they are speaking to each other. They've noted, they found out there's like little clicking going on. There's communications. If one tree is attacked by like some kind of insect, it'll send out these pheromones, and the other trees will get it, and they will change their chemistry into something that insect does not like to eat, or it will kill that insect in order for the others to survive. I mean, they speak in different ways than we do, and I don't think they have they have evolved beyond the emotion. They're
Yeah.
getting where we're wanting to be. We always think we're the supreme beings, and my thought is, I'm not sure.
Yes. Right. Right.
Uh,
That's beautiful. So I know that another way that you help people is through iridology, which I find fascinating and I don't come across it very often. So can you please explain what iridology is?
okay, iridology is reading the eye. Anything that you have an understanding of, it's a hologram if you know how to read it. Some people even go into knots in people's head. They know how to do it, the palms, reading the palms. What I have studied is the eyes. Bernard Jensen, he worked with Kellogg's at Battle Creek. He's the one that really started it, and that was, in the late 1800s. And I got to study with him in New York when he was 92 years old, which was really.
Wow.
And if you go to the Philippines, I've got a certain amount of degrees. They actually have, you can graduate and have a college degree, like a diploma for iridology. And I think also over there that I'm pretty sure the insurance covers people to do the eye readings because they're more into the herbal, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But I did get a thing here to show you. Well, anyway, the left side of the eye and the right side of the eye breaks down. It looks like a clock. You got the top of it, the very top of it, and also you have it like the very around here, the very edge of it is called the scrophule. That's our skin. Our skin is the biggest organ of our whole body. And if the skin is also considered our second kidney. So if we have, like we're itching, or like me, I have some skin issues. That is because my kidneys are not functioning enough. My body tries to flake it off through this. Like if you're sweating, you notice how it tastes salty.
Mhm.
Yeah, just like the kidneys, it's our third kidney. So it's something that's very important. If you have a very large scurf ring and it goes in, like here's your eye, and it goes into like this much of it, there's big issues with it, and you need to do something to help elimination.
Mm.
Because if you can eliminate some of this stuff naturally, and then that will help support your kidneys. And then, but the stomach, the very middle of it, this is the stomach, and then you go outside here, and there is your colon, and at the top is your transcolon, and then you have your small intestines. You got your let's see, the ascending colon, and then you go down here, and there's your appendix on this thing. And then when you go into the other part of it, like straight down on 30 would be your leg. And
Mm.
also, if you look here at the very bottom of it, if I can look at there and say, well, there's problems with your ankle. If it's up here, I can say, oh, there's problems with your knees. If it's up here, higher up, I can say, well, it's your hip. But you can see all these things from there. And it shows the kidneys, it shows the ovaries, it shows the heart. Even at the top, it's the head. It's got the very top of it. It's like your animated life. Then you even got your five senses, your pituitary gland, all these things showing up, your mental speech, all these things, and your medulla shows up also in the head part. But all these things, you can look at it if you know how to read it. And you do not diagnose, but you can see what is going on with this body. Even when I look at some eyes, it looks like a knapsack. There's, it's very loose. And that means that their constitution is not as strong. Sometimes you look at it and the little spokes are just like right on top of each other. They have a very strong constitution. But still, if you don't take care of the body, even though you've got a strong constitution, the person that's got a knapsack possibly could live longer than you do.
Mm.
So, but it's you do not diagnose, you just look at it. And then also I can look at it and even see like high cholesterol, because around where the scurf ring was, with the skin right on top of that, there'll be a place there that looks kind of like a halo. And the wider it gets, the more you can even see where somebody's going into Alzheimer's. It's going to happen because, the cholesterol and stuff is clouding up the mind.
Wow. So when you notice things like you mentioned at like the 12 o'clock, the top of the ring, for instance, is there like a dot there, or what is it that you're looking for to indicate that there's something going on with that organ?
Well, you can look at that organ and you can see what color it is. If it's just, sometimes you'll see it where it's a little bit gray, and that's when something is starting to deteriorate. And then it starts getting darker. And if it's very, very dark, it's called degenerate. When it's gray and it's just starting, that's usually when we feel pain. Just like if we have a problem with our knee, let's say, and if I'm looking at it and it looks gray, it shows to me that I'll ask the person, are you having a lot of pain there? Yes, I am. And it's a good thing because if it's degenerate, you have to really work to build that part of that body back up again to get it functioning where it'll get to the point where it can change. But yeah, you look at it and you see what's going on. And if it's deteriorating, like I say, it's like the hole gets deeper and darker. You can see that. And then there's a lot of different things that are indicators in there, just like I talked about the skin, and also you can see high blood pressure. You can see the kidneys. If you look at it and say that there's a place there on that that's starting to change, the color of it, you can tell that there's something going on for that particular part of the body because it's pretty minute, but I do have a camera I can use. I take a picture of it there, but also just by reading it this way, I can see also. Years ago, there was this gentleman, we went to a meeting, and he was a little bit skeptical, and he was the top, let's see, athletic surgeon there in Columbus in one of the hospitals. And he said, okay, go ahead and read it. And I read it and I told him a couple of things. And then I told him, I said, your esophagus. And his wife was there and their mouths fell open. He had just had a thing done with his esophagus. They was worried about it being cancer. So I gave him what is called STW, which is the lawyer's stomach that calms all that down, the stuff that's in there. There's a lot of bitters in there, and he finally healed him.
Wow.
And then
That's amazing.
He was recommending me to some other doctors follow me up because they don't know about this.
Yeah. Wow.
But it's neat. Yeah, I can take a picture and then, I will send the picture to the person, they will have a copy of it.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a dark spot and it isn't closed, that's a good indicator because it's still open. Sometimes the body will close something off, and that's when you get into issues where it can turn into something else. Another thing that shows up is if there's a lot of acid in our body. Acid breaks down the body, and acid can be caused by emotions. Being very nervous can cause that, but you'll see in the body or that area where it's kind of white. Sometimes you can look at somebody's eye and the whole eye looks like if you look, somebody's got a blue eye and it's like an icy blue. Seeing people like that, they have a lot of acid in their body. So acid tears things down. There's another thing that goes around the outside of the body. It's the scurf ring right about here, and it's called lymphatic rosary. You'll see here where it just looks like little dots, and that's the person's lymphatic system. They need to cleanse it, but you can see that by looking at it. And then when I take the picture of it, I can show the person. It's like, okay, do you see this? Do you see that? It's not diagnosing. It is showing them where they're at this time and possibly giving them some ideas of what to do different.
Yeah, to kind of bring in some reinforcements, maybe.
Yes, and help you correct some of these things. But how I got into it is I was very sick. My hair was falling out, and then I was, real dizzy. I didn't know what was going on. As a child, I spent a lot of time in the hospital, so to go to the hospital is like my last thing I would want to do. And I heard about the Amish in southern Indiana, and I went to see Jake Swartz and Sullivan Wiki. He was so busy. This is interesting. I meant they had no electricity.
Mm.
You go down this little ridge, and it's one of those things where you kind of have to pull over so the other car can go by. I mean, it's a way out. And I pulled into the parking lot. There is cars there from everywhere, like Pennsylvania and, New Jersey. And he was so busy, he couldn't see me. So he told me to go to his nephew. His nephew read my eyes and he said, your kidneys are hardening. That's what's wrong. And he gave me about 5 different things to take, and I got well.
Wow.
And, it didn't, something like that doesn't happen like you take an antibiotic. This is something you take for maybe 6 months, and then you start changing and going back. Sure, that part of that body gets nourished. But then that's when all of a sudden I just decided one night, it was like I needed to do this. I always say that the spirit will take you kicking and screaming where it needs to go.
Mm.
It isn't so much a choice. It is something within you that draws you there. But I read all of his books. My daughter was living here at that time, and she was working nights, and she would leave and I'd be reading it, come home and I'm still reading it.
Wow.
I just couldn't stop. And then, like I say, I got to work with him, and that's when I ended up being, doing the iridology. But it's wonderful.
That's amazing. You have so many modalities and different ways to help people. And like I said, I know people personally. Well, I've worked with you personally, and you and Paul, and just been so delighted and love connecting with you. And then the people, my personal friends who have connected with you as well, have received such amazing benefits. So how can people find out more about you and connect with you?
Well, we do have a website. It's very simple. It's called Paul and Ellen Together. It's one of those www.com. And I believe our phone number is there. I can also give out a phone number. It's 317-339-9693. And if we don't answer it, just leave a message. Again, that's 317-339-9693. And that's my personal phone number. But yeah, just leave a message and we will get back with you.
Beautiful. And I'll have the information in the show notes too, so people can easily read it. Well, Ellen, this has just been beautiful. I've really, really enjoyed getting to know you and having you on here today. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. But thank you so much. You're a blessing to the world.
Oh, thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
You too. Bye-bye, dear.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Meditation Conversation. I'd be so grateful if you would share this episode with someone in your life who would appreciate it. Your sharing helps build momentum and make high vibrational content like this more available and easier to find. I'd also be so grateful for you to subscribe to this content. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to the next meditation conversation.